turning my worst fears into a calling.
In blink of an eye, everything changed. I changed. My life, my story changed completely. Why am I still breathing? I must have died. I should have died. This is how one by one, slowly and gradually, I tried to overcome the fears.
Today's episode is very special. It's special because it's different. Our guest today did not start off building a business. Muniba Mazari was a carefree 21-year-old artist when a car accident took away her mobility, and with that all her hopes and dreams. We learn how Muniba went from not wanting to be alive after her accident to become the activist, model, TV anchor, and now famous artist she is now. For us, she represents a different type of entrepreneur who doesn't fit the common definition, but is as much of a builder and a risk taker than any Silicon Valley tech founder. Muniba takes us through the moments where she had to be brutally honest with herself to accept her new reality that led her to where she is now, but also demand the same candor from the people around her. How does it feel to be a happy woman out and about in a wheelchair in a society that marginalizes every single aspect of her being? How do you deal with the news that you may no longer be able to paint, and you most definitely will not be able to have children? And most importantly, how do you learn to love and accept yourself without falling in love with yourself? Muniba is a role model, a very reluctant one. And in the days where she does not want to get out of bed, she draws strength from the very responsibility of not being able to give up. Please meet Muniba.
This is Naked by the Future Farm, where entrepreneurship is stripped to its vulnerable core. Brought to you by Vladi Meško-Brestinska and Nectarios Lolios.
And remember, subscribe, follow, and rate Naked to help share it with the world.
Muniba, it's a very special time, I would say, and I'll start here. Nectarios, I hope you don't mind, but I take the word because it's very special for me to talk to you. So just to put the context for our listeners, so you are in Pakistan. Can you help us locate yourself where in Pakistan you are at the moment?
I'm in Islamabad right now. That's the capital city, Islamabad.
Yes. And I myself find myself in Karachi, which is on the south of Pakistan. So this is, I think it's the very first time when I am in a country where our guest speaker is. We are still doing it through Zoom just because Islamabad and Karachi are far from each other. And Nectarios, you're in London. So because he also travels around the world when we record, but it's so why is it special for me? Frankly, so Pakistan has grown to my heart in the past 2 years. I'm still very much a humble learner about the country, its people. But your name, I came across your name and the work you are doing very early on. I think it was actually in some of the very first months when I joined the country and started doing some activities over here. Yeah, and some friends of mine that I built a relationship with were like, you need to talk to Muniba. The work she's doing and how she, presents herself to the world and her as a role model. So I was intrigued. I started following you on social media and I've seen some bits of your work. I realized very early on that you are a role model for many. I don't like the term celebrity, but some could say a celebrity in Pakistan. So millions, guys.
No, I'm not. But yes, I'm humbled. Thank you.
So millions follow you, right? So you are very well known in Pakistan. I would dare to say also around the world, but I will get to it. And then in the past, I think it was last month that we actually first time met in person. It was, other friends connected us. And I was like, okay, this is it. We must bring you on the podcast. Like your story, it just needs to be put out there to the wider world. So that's just a little bit of the context there. In Pakistan, so when we were doing some research, you are known as an activist, a role model who works with UN Women, so speaking a lot about women empowerment and women rights, goes beyond so human rights. You are working with transgender community equally. You are an entrepreneur, and we'll talk more about that because it falls under a little bit more of the unconventional type of an entrepreneur. A model, TV anchor. Have I missed any major professional box of yours at this point in time?
I'm an artist. I paint.
How could I miss that one? Apologies. Yes. All that said, that those are some of the boxes, right? And they fill in your puzzle, your own world, your own life. But I think what would be really important for our listeners is that they might not know who you truly are and why your story is so powerful and strong. So could I ask you kindly to start really from many years back and share with our listeners who is Muniba and how did you grow into the person you are and those puzzle pieces of yours?
Sure. Well, I think as a person, as Muniba Mazari, I think my journey started 12 years ago. What happened 12 years ago as something which has really changed me and made me what I am today. And honestly, I don't even remember what I used to be and how I used to be before the incident that happened. So 12 years ago, I was in a car accident. It was a really bad one. I sustained numerous injuries. My forearm radius and ulna, both the bones got fractured. My shoulder bone and collarbone got fractured. My rib cage was completely broken, and because of that, I had immense internal bleeding. My lungs got punctured. Liver was injured. But what changed me and my perception towards living my life was my spinal cord injury. 3 vertebrae of my backbone got completely crushed, and like in blink of an eye, everything changed. I changed. My life, my story changed completely. And so it happened in a far-flung area, and so the locals had no idea how to deal with it. So they wanted to help me out, so they dragged me out of the car. And while doing so, it just destroyed my spinal cord completely, and I got paralyzed. So basically, I am halfway sound paralyzed, and it's been 12 years now. So I ended up in the wheelchair for the rest of my life. And that day, that girl who was 21 years old probably died. And that moment was my rebirth, where I realized that if I have been given another chance to live, there has to be some reason. And it's been 12 years that I'm still trying to find that reason. That's why I'm trying to be the jack of all trades, right? Because I'm trying to do each and everything one step at a time to know what exactly is my true calling in life.
Well, thank you for giving a little bit of light on that life incident, right? And I will not even say that I can know how it feels because I don't know, right? One, I guess, needs to go through such experience. But can you tell us a little bit more where you were in life? What was happening for you when you were 21 years old? Can you describe a little bit more? What was your life like in that period?
So I was married back then at the age of 21, and I was just another girl who was just trying to make things work and being a good daughter, a good wife, and a people's pleaser, And so there are some incidents which probably don't look really nice. They hurt you, they damage you, they deform you, but they somehow transform your soul. And I always say that, those who do not serve you in your greater cause, those people, those ideas, those relationships fade away. And they must fade away. So 21 years old, ended up in the wheelchair, and my journey it's not just about what happened to me, it's more about what I became later on. There are times when you question your credibility, when you question your ability, that I'm so broken, what's the point of living? Why am I still breathing? I must have died. I should have died. So At the age of 21, when I lost a huge chunk of health, it didn't stop there. I remember when I was in hospital, doctors used to come and they were just being brutally honest. They said that, oh, we have heard that, you always aspire to be an artist. Your mother told us. And I said, yes. And I was on my deathbed and talking to the doctors. And I said, yes, I really wish to become an artist. But my hand was so deformed. I've got plates in my arm, in my backbone. So the doctor said that, we won't promise you because your hand is so deformed. We're not sure whether you'll be able to hold a pen or a brush again. So do you have a plan B? And I said, no, I don't have a plan B. This is all I've always aspired to be. And then the doctor who tried to fix my back, he was being brutally honest again. And he said, you know what? We tried to fix your back, Muniba, but I'll be honest with you. You won't be able to walk again. And so you have to sit in the wheelchair forever. And I said, yeah, I've made peace with it, and I'm okay. But you know what, my dear? Miracles happen. So just wait, and one day you'll be able to walk again. He said, there is another thing that I'd like to share. It's because of the intensity of your backbone, you won't be able to be a mother. You won't be able to give birth to a child because that will be risky for you. So that is the moment where I felt completely shattered, and I questioned the divine power that you say that you love me, but if you love someone so much, how can you put that person in so much pain? Why me? Why did you do this to me? And if this is my destiny, I don't want to live. What's the point? And yes, there was a dark phase of depression. My mother, thank God, she's such a staunch support. She used to be there next to me. I used to pull my hair. I used to cry. I used to scream that I'm done, right? Because you see people leaving. They just fade away, slowly, gradually. Even some people who are still with you are not with you emotionally. They're absent, right? And you just cannot say it, that I can see through you, right? So after the surgeries and everything, all the plates, like they fixed my backbone, my arm. And then I was bedridden for another 2 years because I developed pressure sores. I had no idea what pressure sores are. I had no idea about UTI, what is urinary tract infection. I had absolutely no idea how to deal with whatever I was left with. And there was immense nerve pain 24/7, which still is, but now I'm getting used to it. Things were just falling apart. I was falling apart. My relationships were falling apart, and I had no idea how to deal with it. And you see, in that moment of misery, and I was done with life and people, I was giving up. In that moment of adversity, I found that, maybe there is something that I should look forward to. And that's where my mother said that if you have been given another chance, there has to be a reason that why you're still alive and why you're breathing. And as you're saying, why the divine power has chosen me out of so many, well, he will show you one day that out of so many people, why did he choose you? And she used to say, this too shall pass, don't worry. And there will be a time when you will look back and say, oh my God, I've been through so much, but look at me now. And nothing made sense. My mother used to keep giving me advices, but you see, when you're in that dark phase of your life, you just do not want to listen to these advices. You just want to be on your own. Nothing makes sense in that moment. So 2 years and 2.5 months, I was in immense pain. I tried to paint out my emotions. I always say that art is such a beautiful medium. It's silent, yet the loudest. Right? Without saying a word, you just share and narrate. You just do not want to listen to these advices.
I was just thinking.
You want to be on your own. Nothing makes sense in that moment. So it was a rough patch where I was fighting depression, and the idea that now this independent girl who used to do things on her own, all her chores, everything, now is bedridden. Now she's bound forever, right? So that is, dependence is a blessing and a curse at the same time, especially for a person who is so physically independent. So I was fighting with it. I was unable to brush my teeth. I was unable to shampoo my hair. So my mother had to chop off all my hair because it just got stuck. So that was a rough patch. But when I talk about that, the phase of depression that I was trying to overcome, I had absolutely no idea that I was depressed. All I could see around was my mother, who just kept saying that, you know what, it's okay. Just believe in yourself. There is God who will take care of you. But it was not enough. That was not the answer I was searching for. So I had no idea that I was trying to overcome depression for so long. But, that phase passed. And when I sat in the wheelchair for the first time, that's where, all the answers that I wanted, I found them. I looked at myself in the mirror for the first time and I said, this is me. The damage is done. And as the doctors say that, wait for a miracle, it will come and make you walk. I cannot wait. My life has come on hold. People are leaving and they will move on eventually. What about me? I am the one wasting my life. And now I have to accept whatever I'm left with. And let's carry this half body with grace and gratitude. So all the answers that I was trying to seek from other people, I had those answers in me. And I think that was the defining moment where I really realized that, I'm 21, this is me, and this is my story. So maybe in those darkest moments, you really find yourself.
Yeah, it is actually that turning point that really resonates, and I think with a lot of our listeners, but also we spend some time with the other guests and entrepreneurs when they're describing their darkest moments, which are individual for each of us. Can we stay there for a little while on that turning point for you? So there was that period when you were saying that you were not aware that you were facing depression, right? It was those hard moments and your mom was there as a support mechanism. And then you said that you saw yourself in that mirror, you faced yourself. Was there something else? Can we stay a little bit longer around that turning point from the hopelessness towards actually finding a light, as we say at the end of the tunnel, or a hope simply?
Well, there are times when there is no light. There is no light, right? In case of permanent paralysis, there is no light because there is no cure. And you exactly know there is no light. So there are moments when you have to become your own light, right? There is no light in the other tunnel. I'm not walking again. The damage is done. Now what? Now I have to be the light. And self-acceptance really make it work. So when I looked at myself in the mirror, I accepted myself the way I was. I didn't want validation from my mother that I'm a good daughter, or from my husband that I'm a good wife, or from my friends that I'm a wonderful friend. I accepted myself the way I was. Yes, I'm agitated. Yes, I'm depressed. Yes, I'm scared. Yes, I'm vulnerable. But one step at a time, and I will overcome each and every fear. And I literally listed down my fears. My biggest fear was facing people, right? I didn't want to face the world. I remember the days when I used to wear stilettos and wear the best dresses ever, and all those were gone. Now I was in the wheelchair, half broken, half paralyzed, and I was not willing to face the world. Not because I hated people, but because I would say the sympathy that they had in their eyes towards me. The way they used to look at me and treat me as a patient, I didn't want that. I was still alive. I was a human being, and I just wanted to feel alive and not just a mere patient. So I decided that, I'm going to overcome the fear of facing people. And it wasn't easy. I heard remarks like, oh, she's too pretty to be in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
Oh, she deserved better. She deserved better. And the other extreme was, oh, she must have done something wrong in her life. God has punished her, right? God never does this to the people who are great. She must have done something wrong. Maybe she was disobedient. No, I wasn't. I always obeyed my parents. I was a good, obedient wife that I was supposed to be. So these things really shook me to the core. and people used to look at me and they used to give remarks, oh God, please forgive us. Please forgive us. We don't want to be like her. Forgive us. And it was disheartening, but I didn't stop. I kept going to different malls for grocery shopping. I got comments, oh, you're such an inspiration. And at that point, I was doing nothing. I was just painting and living my life. And, people used to say, oh, you're such an inspiration. I said, why? Because you're doing groceries. And I said, mister, your mother and your wife must be doing the same thing. Do you call them inspiration? What makes me different? This wheelchair is the part of me now, right? So at a very early stage, people started calling me inspiration. You are an inspiration. And maybe at that point, I realized that maybe I should become one. I have done nothing in life to be called inspiration. So the idea of becoming inspiration just happened like this because every other person was calling me inspiration. And my only achievement was that I happened to be in the wheelchair, which I couldn't justify. So I started off as an artist. I used to sell paintings in different bazaars, Christmas bazaars, different embassies. And that's how people started calling me the disabled artist of Pakistan. That was the very first article somewhere written, oh, this disabled girl is an artist. Oh, we found this disabled girl enjoying in the concert in Islamabad, and it was shocking for people because most of the people in the wheelchair stay at home and they don't step out. I'm talking about 12 years ago, things were very different. And people were not used to seeing a woman, that to a happy woman in a wheelchair. So I had to overcome this fear of facing people. Well, and other biggest fear was, of course, the fear was divorce. I wanted to make things work. But you see, at certain point in life, you realize that sometimes you have to liberate yourself by setting people free, right? So the people who I tried to cling on to for so long, I decided to liberate myself from that. And, things fall apart. And sometimes maybe two good people cannot live together. And then you move on. And my third biggest fear was the fact that I was unable to give birth to a child. It was devastating, especially for a woman it is. And that's where I thought that, sure, I cannot give birth to a child, but I can certainly adopt one. There are so many kids outside, and it's all about just having a big heart and acknowledging that, motherhood is not about giving birth to a child. It's about just owning a child, right? No matter who he or she is.
Changing perspectives. Absolutely.
It is.
Yeah, no, that's powerful.
All about giving your unconditional love. And every child on this planet Earth deserves your unconditional love. So I adopted my son. He was a few days old, and today he's 9 years old, and he exactly knows his story. He knows he's adopted, and he's so happy about it. And we have great discussions about adoption, why it is, how beautiful the idea of adopting a child is. But there are things which sometimes he gets disheartened, so people know him, he's my son. And right in front of him, people sometimes out of excitement, they come and say, oh, so Muniba Mazari, is he your adopted son? And my son looks at me and he says, I know I'm adopted. They don't have to mention it every time, So I'm still trying to teach people that adoption is a decision, right? It's not an adjective. Adopted child is not a word. My son is my son, whether I've given him birth or not, right? So don't use the word adopted as an adjective, because my son is a human and he feels and he understands. So I think right now we need to still talk more about it's okay to adopt a child, he's the part of me and he's all that I have. So this is how one by one, slowly and gradually, I tried to overcome the fears. And
all of it in Pakistan, just for the context, all of this in the space of, now it's progressing, obviously, right? We both see that, and you more than myself, but in a still conservative society of Pakistan.
So we are diverse people, and in my case, I've always seen people giving so much respect, and that's truly humbling.
Mm.
We set out to do this podcast to destigmatize mental health in entrepreneurship. You're talking about your journey where you destigmatize or kind of implicitly destigmatizing so many different things. It's the wheelchair. It's the woman in a wheelchair. It's the woman that adopted rather than having natural birth and all that. So just ticking the boxes, which is all a response to something that happened to you rather than that you chose to do originally, right? There is something that I'm curious about, which is, as I was listening to your story, there's this moment where you moved from being part of a broad majority to having a minority experience. And now as you're talking about this, the minority experience keeps coming through in everything, like the disability is a minority experience, the woman in a wheelchair, the happy woman in a wheelchair, but also the woman who adopted, right? So how much do you think that recognition of I'm now at a point where I become, on the one side, very visible because I stand out, but at the same time quite invisible because as a disabled person, for instance, you normally fade in the background. How did that feed into your kind of drive to do all these different things? Because when Vladi started listing all the different things that you're doing, it's not an obvious thing. It's not something that you go, yeah, of course, right? I had a bad experience. I'm just going to go on a stage and model, or I'm going to go and present
work
a television
with UN. Yeah.
Yeah. So where does that switch happen? What gets you to that point to go, this is a start, but it has to be more. I have to be a lot louder. I have to be a lot more vocal.
Well, I've never experienced, honestly, I've never experienced that I'm fading away or that I'm not seen. Somehow, I don't know why, but I've always caught people's attention. As I'm saying, even when I was doing nothing, I was just doing groceries, getting diapers for my son. Random people were coming and saying, we're such an inspiration, right? And I had to justify this term inspiration. And maybe that is one of the biggest push for me that, you know what? They expect something from me. I need to justify this title they're giving to me because I'm not doing enough. And I think that I'm blessed in a way that because I'm a woman in a wheelchair, I can do a lot of things. People will either love me or they will just hate me. There is nothing in between. So somehow things became easier for me. So when I decided that I'm going to face the world and I'm going to share my story, I will face the fear of facing people. The first ever platform that I received was TEDx. And I shared my story at TED Talk. And overnight, it just went viral somehow. It happened in Islamabad, TEDx Islamabad. That was the very first one. I was wearing black jacket and while I was giving the talk, I was asking, what am I doing? Why am I sharing so much? I know this is my way of facing the fear that so many people are there and I'm sharing my story, but why am I doing this? I'm such an idiot. It's like 10 minutes TED Talk and I have opened up. I'm just an open book in front of everyone. And while I was questioning, right after the talk, this young girl, she came at the stage and she said, can I give you a hug? And I said, yeah, sure. She gave me a hug and she said, thank you. Today, your 10-minute TED Talk has solved 10 problems of my life. And today I realized that those 10 problems never existed. They were just in my head, And in that moment, I realized maybe this is my true calling in life. So here I am sharing my story, telling the world that this is what I've been through and this is how I'm dealing with it. I'm not preaching gratitude. I'm not preaching or trying to, imply that, do what I am doing. I'm just narrating my story and my idea of facing people and facing all my fears. And people are listening and it's helping them. And in that very first talk, I said something along the lines that I don't know what exactly I'm going to do in the near future, but you will see me doing greater things. I just said it. And right after that TEDx, I was given this title of First Goodwill Ambassador for UN Women Pakistan. I got that shield I went to PTV, that's Pakistan State Channel. I did my very first TV show. I'm the first wheelchair-bound female anchor person in Pakistan. From there, I got a call from this brand, Tony and Guy, and it's a London-based. So Tony and Guy, and they said, would you like to be a model? And the theme is going to be the woman of substance. I said, yes, I'll do it. So I somehow surrendered to the universe. And I said, I have greater purpose in life. Show me the way. And if I'm unable to see, guide me through the way. Be the light. So whatever came my way, I just said yes. Yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. Because it was not just about me. I knew that I would be the first one doing all this, but I wouldn't be the last. So my journey is more about carving ways for so many other young girls, women, boys in the wheelchair, right? And it has really changed perspective of the society now. So I think somehow my presence in the wheelchair has really given me the strength to experiment and to do everything that I want to do. And luckily, people have now started accepting.
So, Muniba, what I'm also hearing when you were describing that TEDx talk that you did and you open up yourself a lot. I was actually thinking of Brené Brown. It just came on my mind because she has in a way a similar story when she shares when she did her TED talk and was just super honest and vulnerable. And then she was also saying thinking like, oh my God, right? And then the whole viral bubble hit. But it was what I was feeling and sensing was authenticity, vulnerability, and then you connected it to helping you to find your true calling. And a lot of entrepreneurs and leaders, founders, when we get on our journeys, right? So there's a mission, the higher purpose, bigger than ourselves that we commit ourselves to. Many times on that journey, we actually lose the compass. I think it's very, very frequent that people ask themselves the question why am I doing this? Am I on the right track? Is this truly my calling, my vocation? How do you navigate those moments? And are some of those moments actually present in your life?
I think the easiest way is you need to remind yourself every day that all that I've achieved, all the trophies and shields and medals that I have, they are for me. Right? That can just make me feel good. But what about the people around me? I will always feel hollow and empty if I do things for my own good. Right? So when things were going for me, life was going for me, and I was getting all these contracts and talks and everything, I exactly knew that this is not something that I've always wished for. I always want the universe to use me for its people. And that is where the whole idea of Food Drive started. So everything that I'm doing right now, my main objective is to give awareness to the people through a TV show, through my artwork, through my talks, and through the Food Drive. Food Drive is a place where I can be vulnerable with those who are vulnerable, right?
Please do explain. People don't know your projects. Yes, please do explain right. Because it's beautiful. Yes.
Sure. Yes. So Food Drive is basically a drive for humanity, I would say. It's not just about feeding people. It's about giving them the utmost respect, respect that every human being deserves. And so our team, the Food Drive family, I call them, so we have different girls and boys and transgenders. We are working together. So we get the food cooked every Saturday and Sunday. And on the roadside with all the beautiful people of Pakistan, so we sit on the corner of the road and we eat food together. And, people just come for some people, I always say that people just don't crave for food. They crave for love. They crave for respect and acceptance. So at the Food Drive, we all just sit together and have food. And one of the reasons why I wanted Food Drive to flourish was because there's a stigma related to the transgender community in Pakistan. People don't want to talk to them. People do not want to take pictures with them. Somehow, unfortunately, there is a certain mindset in Pakistan which thinks that transgender people are impure. You see, and so when we started off the food drive project, many people refused to eat food from our transgender friends, saying that we cannot get food from them because they're impure. So it took us more than 2 years to change the narrative. And today, when we go to the food drive and we distribute the food, I've never seen people fighting over food. I've never seen people calling names. There is no difference. There is no discrimination. Everybody sits on the floor mat and they just eat food and they're happy and they pray and they leave. So that was my way of connecting to my roots. Yes, I travel around the world. I give talks. I speak. People listen. It's a blessing. I go to the studio, I interview people, I listen to them and I get to meet amazing people. But that's not the majority. Majority is all about the people sitting on the roadside, right? That food drive has really made me a better person, and the idea that it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay not to be okay, they have taught me that. And there are so many times when I went to the food drive and I just held my transgender friend's hand and I cried nonstop. They never asked, why are you crying? They never asked, are you okay? All they did was, it's going to be okay. They were so accepting. So to me, I keep myself motivated in a way that whatever I'm doing right now, I know it's not just about me. I have to make a difference in people's lives, maybe through art, or through music, or through TV programs, or through food drive, So that really keeps my perspective alive in front of me. So when you see somebody who does not look okay, so the question that we ask them is, are you okay? That's a wrong question. So if you see someone who doesn't seem okay, instead of asking them, are you okay, because they're not, just ask them, you don't look okay, can we have a talk? It's the time to become a good listener, because mental health is real. There are people who stuck in that negativity for too long. They are scared to speak up. So this question, when we see somebody unwell, don't ask them, are you okay? Because they're not, right? Just become a good listener and listen to them and listen to their side of the story as well. And maybe that will help a lot of people who are facing this problem of mental health illnesses. And
when you make the choices about what to engage with, because clearly a lot of people come to you because they have an idea and you would be the perfect person to represent that idea. Do you see yourself as an entrepreneur in that moment? Do you kind of approach the whole thing as I'm Muniba, I'm a person, I'm a name, but I'm also a brand. Is there a business piece in the back of your mind saying, I also have people that I need to pay, I have people to look after, etc., etc.? How does that side of the image that we see tick?
Well, I never knew that one day I will become a brand, but now I have. Life has happened. And yes, I am an entrepreneur, being a speaker, as an artist, and of course, because I'm working as an anchor person, definitely, we have bills to pay. And so I always make sure that the work that I'm doing and the philanthropic work that I'm doing, they don't go like this. These are two separate things. And the business side is something that my brother manages for me, because I'm terrible at that. I'm not a finance person. My brother is, so he manages things. And because I'm a giver, he says that, you focus on your food drive and other things and your medical camps. Let me handle with that. I will deal with it. So there is that side, but I usually don't come up and say that, I'm an entrepreneur, because I feel I'm more like a person who thinks from her heart and not from her brain. So my brother deals with that part and I deal with the rest.
So we need to destigmatize or change the perspective around how people look at entrepreneurs, right? Because you are not the first who actually we interviewed on this Naked podcast and who would not see themselves or would not present themselves as an entrepreneur. But I think, Necharis, if I speak for both of us in our team, one of the core values for us is to actually speak to the world and start creating this more inclusive, holistic really a view of what it means to be a builder, somebody who is behind a venture, whatever form and shape the venture has, right? Whether it's a self-brand, technology company, you have your own restaurant, but we have that mission, that purpose, that calling that you said, and then you have your own path creating different ways to get to that purpose. So that's why we also, one of the reasons why we invited you, because we very much see you as that builder and that entrepreneur.
It's simple. Can you imagine ever having a boss? I think that's where it starts. And most people, even if they wouldn't say I'm an entrepreneur, go, no, I make my choices. I know my path. I want to change the world the way I have chosen to do it. Right?
Exactly.
Muniba, I would like to spend some time with you also talking about self-acceptance and self-love. It is, again, it's very core to me personally, because it's something that I am working on for myself also, which might be not visible to a lot of people, because similar to you, like people see you from outside and it's like, oh, you're very confident, a strong woman. Why would you even ever doubt, right? And we talked about it a lot also with Nectarius and on the team, is that one of those pieces around self-acceptance and self-love. I'm even trying to understand the difference between the two, frankly. From taking yourself as you are, accepting yourself, as you were saying, and moving towards really loving yourself to the level that you nurture yourself, right? That you allow yourself to have those spaces where you are with yourself, for yourself. I want to talk to you about this because I have a very light feeling when I see you, when I talk to you. It's like your vibrations, your energy gives me that feeling that there's a lot of self-love. Can you unpack that a little bit for us and the listeners?
Yes. So I always say one thing: love yourself, but don't fall in love with yourself. There are two different things.
Yes,
right?
I like that a lot. Yes.
Yes. Self-love is all about accepting yourself the way you are, right? With all your vulnerability, your fears, your stress, your problems, your miseries, everything, right? But then don't fall in love with yourself, because love is blind. And when you fall in love with yourself, you won't be able to correct yourself. Yes, I might feel very comfortable in my own skin. I'm happy the way I am. I've accepted the reality and myself, but also I'm my biggest critique. I'm my biggest critique, because I know people around me will never say that you're wrong, right? Because maybe they would say, no, she knows what she's doing, but sometimes I really don't know what I'm doing. And I want people to keep me grounded. So self-acceptance is something that, okay, this is me, this is my struggle, and there will be times when I will fail, there will be times when I will fall, but I will remind myself every day that I'm strong enough to deal with it. I will rise back up. It's okay. I will fail, but I will try again. And that I'm courageous. And sometimes I think courage doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be, look how strong I am. Sometimes courage is just that tiny whisper that, every night you tell yourself, it's okay. Try again tomorrow. That is courage too. And that courage also comes with self-acceptance. That yes, I tried, it didn't work, but it's okay. Tomorrow I'll try again. Yes, but there is a quote that people keep sharing. It's somewhere I once said, I couldn't find a hero in my life, so I became one. And some people liked it, some people don't. Like, oh, it's all about self-obsession and self-love. And I said, no, we need to redefine the term hero. Who are heroes? To me, hero is someone who believes in self-analysis, a person who wants to become a better person every single day. To me, that is the true definition of a hero. And that definition does not let me fall in love with myself, right? And that's where I say that I am my biggest critique. So I accept all my flaws and my faults, and I try to improve every single day, and that comes with self-acceptance.
Yeah, no, that's liberating. Yeah. Nectarius, I see you nodding. Do you have any perspective on it?
Well, also lots of counseling that helped me getting a perspective on that. I think, no, but it's important. It's important to also find the way that you can do that, right? Because I'm very bad at introspection alone. So I need external input. That's why I've started therapy quite early in my life, and I've loved every moment of it because I have somebody who very objectively gives me feedback. So I don't have the sycophants around me telling me the cool stuff or a partner who might have an agenda. So I just go, okay, I'm listening, because so my introspection comes with assistance. I think it's also interesting what you talked about when you talked about the hero bit, that also recognizing that even the most visibly strong people go to bed at night sometimes feeling weak and low and need to pick themselves up again, right? What else do you have in your repertoire, in your toolkit that helps you kind of navigate moments of weakness?
Well, there are days when I was talking to a friend yesterday as well. There are days when I don't feel like getting up in the morning and shift on my wheelchair. There are days where I think I will conquer the world, but then there are days when I don't want to face the world. And then a sound comes, a voice comes, and my son says, "Mom, it's too late, wake up." And I'm like, okay, today is not about me, it's about him. And the next day, I might still be feeling very low. I might be crying all night long, knowing that there is no one around and nobody will judge me. It's okay to cry. Next morning, I'm still feeling low, but my mother will come in the room and say, I'll make tea for you. Have some tea. So I will do it for her. And the third day, I might be doing it for myself. That, let's not sulk in that negativity. You see, a very interesting thing that I shared in my very first talk, talking about vulnerability. So I shared all the achievements and everything that I did in my life, that look how strong I am. And then I shared my reality, that at night, when I'm thirsty, and when I see my mother is in bed and she's sleeping, and I don't have my water bottle next to me, I'm unable to get up and get a glass of water for myself. I'm so dependent. And that's my vulnerability, but that's also my reality, right? And I would stay thirsty all night long because I do not want to disturb my mother. I would prefer staying thirsty. But then I pick up my phone and I see all those messages that people are sending, all those emails that I'm getting, how people are sharing their stories of how vulnerable they are, how my words have impacted them, and how, because of my words, they're not giving up, So these two extremes, I juggle with these two every single night. I am strong, yet I'm vulnerable. I'm very independent, yet I am dependent, So sometimes this dependence takes over. Sometimes this independence takes over. So I think we all humans are struggling with these two extremes every now and then. The difference is my dependence is obvious. It's apparent. My suffering is visible. Maybe your suffering is invisible, but doesn't mean that your suffering is lesser than mine. So it's a great question, but I juggle with these two things every single night, single night. Here I am crying because I'm thirsty. Here I am reading a message. Oh my God, Muniba, because of you, I didn't give up. And these two make me what I am.
Yeah. It sounds like that moment, and Nectar, to your question in terms of the tools, because sometimes when we ask our guests, some of them go to very concrete things, right? They say, this is the book I read, or I go and I have my therapist, I have a peer group and stuff. What I'm hearing, Muniba, from you is that moment that you actually pick up the phone, it seems like you actually consciously design moments and experiences for yourself that you face the reality in terms of the perspective of other people's life, your impact on other people's life, that seems it's lifting you up and gives you the hope to actually, it all matters. I'm here for a reason.
It really helps. It really helps because sometimes, as I said, there is no light at the end of the tunnel. Why am I doing all this? Or the fact that I am an inspiration, thank you, but I don't feel like an inspiration right now. Don't tell me I'm inspirational because I'm dying, right? I do not want to be called inspiration. Can you give me a break? But then I realized that what if one day Muniba wake up in the morning and write that I'm tired and I'm giving up? If I say so, there are so many people that I've never even met in person, but they believe in me so much that they will give up. And that keeps me going. I just cannot afford to give up. Maybe it's not just about my son. It's not just about my mother. It's about so many people. They believe in me, and I do not want to break their trust. It's hard, but it really keeps me going. It really does.
I noticed two things in our conversation, but also in the conversation we had in preparation. One is your immediate family seems to be an enormous source of strength.
Yes.
But just importance for you. Because you keep referring to your mother, you keep referring to your son, but you also mentioned your brother who takes care of the business.
Yes, and the audio and recording everything. Yes.
But the other thing in this that comes through, and we haven't really put a word towards it, but it started even when you talked about the moment in bed when the doctors were telling you maybe a miracle will happen, is honesty. Mm-hmm. So you keep coming back to that in every single statement, more or less. It's that radical honesty with yourself, the honesty with your people, with the world, right? So vulnerability and honesty combined seems to be a theme in your life.
Yes.
How do you manage to, where does this courage come from to say, I have to be honest? Or how do you articulate to somebody on the other side to tell them, you know what? Don't sugarcoat things. Just be 100% honest with me, because that's the only way to move forward.
That courage comes from within. You see, I face the world, but before that, I have to face myself in the mirror, right? So if I'm being dishonest, I can lie to the world, but I cannot lie to myself, right? And somehow I have this, it's very creepy, but I can see through souls now. I can read people so well. And I keep telling people that, the best thing you can give to someone is your honesty. Be honest to yourself, be honest to the people. Why do you have to hide behind the idea of, I'm super strong, while you are dying and sulking in grief from within, right? It's okay to speak up. Yes, there will be people who will be judging you, but by the end of the day, when you look at yourself in the mirror, you would say, I did a good job. So when I have to go and give talk to the people, and when I speak and share my story, I come back and I look at myself. What things, did I do a good job? That's my question to myself. And if I'm being dishonest, I will never be able to face myself. So this courage of being honest to yourself comes from within.
So you were a bit of a fangirl.
Yeah, I was. It happened to me because I am a fan, indeed, from a time back. And when I talked to her in person, I just knew that it will be good. Like her story and the way she, shares it to the world, and how she thinks about what she says, how she reflects on stuff. It's, So that's why. So I'm just like, yeah, indeed, I'm a fan. A girl, a woman. So.
I felt a bit excluded at the beginning. I felt the first 20 minutes was, I don't need to be here. And that not in a negative way. It was literally just, this was for you.
Yeah.
But also partly because it took a while for me to find a hook into your story and entrepreneurship, because the first 20 minutes where it was all about the accident. So unlike previous conversations where we had people who decided to build a business and then we talked about the mental health struggles that they faced along the journey, this was more about somebody who had a big life event that had a lot of mental health challenges that led them to a different path that we see as an entrepreneurial path.
Yeah. So I saw that I saw that hook there when I was thinking about what we are going to talk to her, right? In terms of this really unconventional, not traditional way of seeing entrepreneurs. And the fact that Muniba herself said it, I would not present myself as an entrepreneur, was a really strong one. It reminded me Asma Khan, right, who we talked to a few months back, who said the same thing. And they both are truly entrepreneurs in that spirit, in what they do, how they build their ventures, all of that. So I'm thinking, Nectarius, that this is it is a strong topic. It's a rich topic to talk about, like that box of who we see and consider as an entrepreneur, a company builder, a venture builder, seems really small, really limited.
It's important for me. It was important for me to talk about this now in our conversation about this episode, just to kind of highlight how brainwashed we all are in what we recognize as entrepreneurial. So the good stuff about the association with a business builder, with entrepreneur, are usually associated to a particular type of profile, to a particular behavior, to a particular journey. And this is clearly not the case here, right? And it's just, I could slap myself for going, why did you get into that hook, into that group, right?
No, but it's good. You came out fairly quickly. I saw you nodding on the podcast when we talked about it, and I was like, okay, he's with me around broadening.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
This is, and maybe we haven't spoken about this so much in our previous episodes, but as we progress, I think it becomes more and more evident that this is one of the many things we want to do that is, I believe, genuinely different. Is moving away from that Silicon Valley flavor of entrepreneurship that is usually only looking at tech entrepreneurs and a particular kind of demographic, how it feels and looks and their ambitions.
200%.
And going, no. Yeah.
Yeah.
As we were talking, and because I had a bit more of a passive role in this, I was actually trying to figure out what is the one thing that comes across at everything that Muniba has said or done. In our conversations, the things we see about her kind of activities, and it was that subject of honesty, this radical honesty, and her telling us that she told the doctors, I don't want you to tell me that maybe there's a miracle. We have talked about this in pockets before, but it was never as clear to me as it has been in this particular conversation, that being honest with yourself, being honest with everybody around you, because only then you can actually do all the things you need to do. And I don't know how you feel about that, because it's not a subject we have touched very often on.
Yeah. So, when you actually talk to her about honesty, in my world, it connected to being an enabler to find your own voice. That's how I translated it. That the honesty of facing yourself, honesty with others. For me, the honesty with others follows the honesty with being honest with yourself. The ability to really, and again, they're all connected. Accept yourself and see yourself as you are, hence being honest with yourself about the weak parts, the strong parts, the spaces for improvement, all of it. Then I believe it allows me and enables me to project the true me to the wider world, to others. And then the powerful point, if I would have to pick one point from this conversation for me personally, was that this can enable you to find your own purpose, your own vocation, true calling in life. I thought that was really something that resonated with me, and I can imagine it can resonate with a lot of other people, because it feels that many times we are trying to find our true calling through the ways which are somehow, blurred by expectations, what's trendy, what feels like we should be doing, all of that, rather than how do I show up to this world?
It's interesting, the whole, I'm inspirational, I don't want to be inspirational, but I have to be inspirational, therefore I will draw strength from being inspirational when I don't feel like it. It's a very kind of messed up when you have to be, when you suddenly start feeling a burden on your shoulders and you're weak yourself, you actually are, for a variety of reasons, really vulnerable, really delicate, tender, right?
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I love the fact that she actually tried to unpack that that she didn't take it as if, you know, because a lot of people tell you, you're an inspiration, you're inspirational. We use that word a lot. I mean, I feel like sometimes use it too much. But that when she was saying that she goes to the grocery stores and she buys groceries and she does the very ordinary things and people tell her you are inspirational. And she's like, oh, really? Why? Like, it's just take me as I am. I'm doing everything as your wife would be doing or you are doing. And then I really rate her and others who take the time and actually dig deeper and understand why the other people see them as inspiration. Is that something they can connect to themselves, like themselves, authentic. Oh my Lord, today is a hard day. It was a long conversation in an authentic way. And then she said that she built her own calling from it, right? Like her own vocation. So because it can be such a buzzword to be inspirational, and we just always overlook that.
I think there's a piece in here that I think contributed to me feeling a bit excluded at the beginning, which was the woman angle. Right? There was something there for me just watching the two of you talk, where there was this implicit sisterhoodness that just translated, right? And also a lot of the examples that Muniba used were about this girl came and gave me a hug, and I'm pretty sure there's a wider community that kind of the message and the person and the inspiration kind of resonates with, but there's also very clearly something which is all about women. Ultimately, her role also as a UN kind of ambassador for women.
But it's interesting that you say that, because I was actually looking at you when you were asking the question around the minority angle, and I was like, I felt that you nearly felt that you know where she's coming from, right? Yourself belonging into one. And so I found that was actually very, very strong element that is replicable for so many people, because we find ourselves as a part of our identity to be, in a way, a part of minority group. And I don't really like this grouping, although sometimes it's just very important to say that some of the people and part of our identities are not privileged or are discriminated in a way. So it's interesting that you say, because I thought that you connected with that.
Oh, no, I connected with a lot, and don't get me wrong, I connected with the whole conversation, but there's something on top of that, which is very much the women solidarity conversation. Me having multiple minority experiences, that's not part of the many minorities that I am of, right? But I felt that there was something very universal in that. And you beautifully summed it up when you were saying around, woman, an artist who is wheelchair bound, right? Then a woman who adopts, a woman on a wheelchair who adopts. And the piece that you said, actually a fulfilled, happy woman bound to wheelchair who have adopted. I loved it how you put it that way, because it was so many, and I'm sure that there are so many other 1,000 layers to who Muniba is. But it helped me just to be like, oh wow, there are so many things that actually she's already breaking stigma around by how she's looking at life and changing different perspectives on one's conditions. There is something she didn't mention on our podcast, but she sort of alluded to in the prep call. It only came through in the one sentence about you're too pretty to be in a wheelchair. There is also a recognition of an element of privilege that comes from kind of the family background, but also just we know that good-looking people have it easier in life, right?
We do. So I feel that once you acknowledge that and you are honest to yourself, that and you face that and you are aware of your own privileges, then for me, when it turns into being a powerful is when you actually work with it as a tool, as a mechanism to amplify the cause you are fighting for. And I think that's powerful. But it comes back to being aware of it, face it, take it as, okay, this is it. And I am privileged equally on that lens. So I think that indeed is important.
You've been listening to Naked by the Future Farm, where entrepreneurship is stripped to its vulnerable core. To learn more about our work, sign up to our newsletter or visit thefuturefarm.co, where you can also apply to be a Naked guest. Naked is produced by Dan Trgil, coordinating producer Alena Diamidava, and edited by Catherine Dworkin.
And remember, subscribe, follow, and rate Naked to help share it with the world.